Good afternoon, everyone. Thought I'd pop in and do another live video with you. I'm also having another Corona, even though it's not my news day, which is the Friday US time or Thursday US time. It's so hot today in Melbourne. It's around, I think it's just over 100 degrees. It's 37 degrees Celsius now. Going to get hotter, so I thought I'd have a drink with you guys. Anyway, what I intend to do today is I'm going to take you through my process of using Final Cut, because I wanted to actually show you how I use it as a photographer for my Fusion, which is giving clients the video at the same time as I'm doing the still. So I wanted to show you how I put that together and sort of show you how it's built, just for the people that are interested. So if you're not interested in video at all, this may not interest you that much, but if you are interested in how I put the video together with the stills sort of shooting at the same time, this will answer a few questions. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the live chat, guys, and I will pop over to that every so often and just see if you guys have any questions that you want to ask. But cheers anyway. I'm drinking the lovely Corona Extra again. Oh, it's nice on a hot day. Let me just see who's come in. We've got Tony's here, Imda Brown, Oreo's here, Richard's here, Keith's here as well. They're all in at the moment. Obviously, we'll get more people watching in, so please give us a thumbs up if you can, guys. We'll get some more people over. So what I'm going to show you is how I shoot the images basically at the same time, and I'll talk about how I shoot the still side of it, plus then I'll talk about how I incorporate the video side to it at the same time. But then I'm going to show you the whole process of how it's built from start to sort of end. So it may be a fairly long video. I'm not sure how you guys will go with it, but obviously if it's too much for you at this stage, you could just turn off and watch it again later on. If you're watching later on and you can't ask live questions, please leave the questions down below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Just remember that my business is basically mostly photography, but I am moving more over to video. So I'm in no means am I a video expert. I'm learning as much as a lot of other people are out there. So this is a good example of showing you what I'm learning, and I'll talk about some of the pitfalls and things like that as well as we go through it. I'm using multiple cameras, which I'll show you in a minute. I use the GH5 in this and also the A6500 on a gimbal. So I was using two separate cameras. Obviously in the still side I was using the Sony A9 and the Sony A7R II for the still side of the photography. Who else have we just got? Iron Brown said, David Hoser is a handsome fella. Thanks so much, Tony, I appreciate that. Perhaps it's the beer. I hope you're going to have a beer with me anyway. He looks like my negative. That's because I'm so white, Tony. I love it. And no hair. You guys crack me up, seriously. Hi, David, how are you? So what I do, the way that I tend to shoot these videos is because I'm shooting all of the things at the same time, I'm often holding two cameras. So, you know, I'll have one camera in one hand, the still camera, and then I'll have another camera in my other hand, which is usually on a gimbal or whatever. I also set things on tripods, and I'll talk to you about how the shots were created when we look at the, when we go through Final Cut. And I'll often do things, why I like it so much is because I'll set up an image that I like for photography, and then I'll basically redo it for the video side of it. Or sometimes I'll just have the camera next to me, like I showed you that monopod that I used the other day. Sometimes I'll have that also sitting next to me and just do it in one take. And it's great. The advantages of doing this is because I can actually, I don't have to worry about, I mean, I don't mind working with videographers, but this way I'm in full control. Basically, they won't get in my way. I can do what I like. It's quicker if the timelines are very tight because you don't have to do things twice, multiple times, things like that, you know, and I'm in total control. I do only give the clients, though, the 3 to 4 minute highlight reel, and you will see this if you look down at the video below. I'll put it in the description down below for you. You can see the fully edited video that just went out yesterday if you haven't seen it, so you'll be able to see how the fully edited video looks as well. Just let me see what else saying here. David said hi. What else have we got? how's the weather? It's very hot. Oh, that's David Johnson he's talking about. The A-team. Just most people saying hi. Okay, so let's get through it. Anyway, so we'll start going over. So I'm going to cut over to Final Cut, and I'll explain how I put the whole files together. So let's switch over to here for you. So what you're looking at now, you're looking at the whole timeline, basically, of how this was set up. So the video that you were looking at, if you have seen the video I put up yesterday, you'll see how this has been created actually through here. Let me just open up this desk scribble just in case if I want to draw something. So you'll see here how the whole timeline works. You can enlarge this timeline up if you want to go larger so you can see the images bigger, but I'm scrolling down. Now I've had to make this fairly small to fit on the screen for you guys to see through the YouTube. So I normally work with this at much bigger, and it's actually full screen. That's why I like that wide monitor that I showed you the other day. Oh, thank you so much, Tony. Really appreciate that, mate. So if you're looking at it, the way that I start is everything is imported in at the beginning in just a normal folder. So if you're looking at the top over here, there's a folder called the Liana Wedding, which I stick up. Now everything is then imported into that folder. Now you can actually almost work straight away in Final Cut. It's very, very fast to work really quickly. But the issue is you lose track of basically where everything is. So what I do is I upload into separate folders on my computer. There'll be an A6500 folder. There'll be a drone folder. I'm using the Maverick in this case. And there'll also be a GH5 folder. But then when I'm dragging everything in, I drag everything in one go into the folder which is called Liana Wedding. Now I shot everything in 4K. And the reason why I did that was because I want to have the ability to crop in. Remember, I'm not using often multiple cameras because I haven't got the time for that. I'm shooting Fusion, which means I'm usually only running one camera. So if I do want to crop into something, I have got that ability to crop in, which makes it look like I'm using multiple cameras. So it's a great advantage if you can shoot 4K. So I am outputting this file at 24p. But I actually shot them all in 4K, which gives me basically 100% enlargement, so I can go up to 200% if I want to crop something in. And that can be a real lifesaver if you want to get rid of something that's not important to you, or you just want to say, and I'll show you when I did it in a couple of spots where I've actually cropped in and it makes it look like it's larger. It just gives you that ability to crop in and get rid of stuff you don't like, and it makes it look like you've got multiple camera angles. So it's a really great thing if you do want to do that. But the first thing that I actually do is I'll then start to create folders based on the cameras that I'm using. Oh, Delta Dave, thank you. He's matching for the A7R3 funds. Thank you so much, Dave. So down here, you'll notice that I've got multiple folders. So I've got one folder which is called Bcam. I've got another one which is called, I wonder if I can use that zoom. What was that? I can't remember what the quick keys are. So I've got a Bcam folder. I've got a bride camera. Now the bride camera is the bride prep, and I'll show you these in a moment, how they're set up. I've got drone footage that I've used. I've got formals, and what I mean by formals, that's the formal part of the wedding that's actually done after the ceremony when we go to locations and shoot around locations. So they're the formal parts. I've got groom prep. I've also got the wedding reception here, and also the wedding ceremony is here as well. So what I'll do is in this main folder, I'll actually highlight what I want, and then all I do is I actually go to, I'm just trying to find where it actually is. Let me just have a look. Oh yeah, here. I just go up to this little key that's up the top, up here. I'll just show you where that is. Right there. I go up to there, and if I open that up, you'll see that it shows the keyboard shortcuts that I've set up, which is wedding, groom, bride, formals, reception, drone, and Bcam. So all I have to do is have that open, and when I've highlighted the images all from, say, the Bcam files that I'm using, I just click on that Bcam, which is there, and then it puts it into that folder. So it's a great way of organizing things. The main thing that I've found is that if you're not organizing where your images are, it's so easy to miss something, because if you're dealing with the full wedding like that there, it's way too hard to find the images that you're going to use. per ceremony. So it's really important to stick them inside this keywording, which puts them like inside folders. So for instance, now if I'm clicking on here, it'll just be BCAM. So what I did was I spent the day after actually shooting bits and pieces all around this area of different things. You can see as I skim across, it will start to move across the actual image. So I was shooting all of this as BCAM footage that I can put into somewhere else later on to just fill in, and I'll show you where that's used in the timeline. But I did sort of take all this footage from everywhere else, and I've put that down as BCAM footage, and you can see some have these little yellow markings on them. That's images that I've actually used in the actual video itself. Again, there was just a horse and cart that was coming past, and I've used this as footage as well. It's just a great way to cover over where you've got a cut done, for instance, or just something where it might be interest, where the bride, for instance, talks about why she chose this location, and then I could put in some B footage showing all that location that I shot, so you'll see that as well. You'll also notice down here I've then also put the bride prep on, so anything to do with bride prep has been put inside here as well. And again, you'll sort of see that I can scroll through and just sort of work out what I want to actually use from this bride preps section as well, which it's great. Once you've got the organisation done, it makes it so much easier to actually work out. I do interview the bride with a mic attached, and I sync that, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit later as well. But I will sync the audio. I very rarely just use the on-camera audio. There's drone footage as well that I've shot that you can see here that I've put in a separate folder as well. And again, that could also be put on BCAM, but I like to keep it as a separate folder. It just works well for me that way. I've got the formals. So the formal shots, like I said, were when the bride and groom were at the location that I've taken, where I'm just doing different things with the bride and groom. You know, they're having kisses and cuddles and things like that, just walking away from the car and stuff like that. Like I said, I was actually shooting this with stills at the same time as what I was shooting the video. So again, I didn't have to stop anything because it was all working the same time as I was working. Groom prep was the same. I did interview the groom again, and he had a lapel on, and I matched that video to the audio later on. And again, it's got all the groom getting ready files that I've used and things like that. The wedding reception's the same, so it's anything to do with the wedding reception has been put inside here. Again, you can sort of see where I've used inside these little markings here. I just shoot everything. The more that I actually shoot, it just means the more that I can use. Now, obviously, I haven't used everything, because if you check inside here, you can see that I've used this one, but I haven't used these other ones that are from here. But I'll just keep shooting them. The second I've got some free time, I'll just keep going around and shooting and grabbing more footage. And remember, often these are only 10 seconds, 5 seconds in length. Like I said, I shot everything in 4K, but I've only shot everything for very short periods of time, but it means I can go back later on. The speeches I do put on a tripod, and I'll record the whole lot, and that's actually with the H6 connected into the board for the DJ. And then I can record that and sync that later on back into the camera, because you can't really use on-camera microphones because you get a bit of echoey. It's much nicer to use direct audio. If I couldn't do that, I'd then obviously mic up the microphone. I'd have a little lapel attached to the microphone, and that way I could record the audio that way, and I'll always sync it later on. Sometimes I sync it through Final Cut, and sometimes I'll sync it through Pluralize. So they're the way I'll work. So I do put the camera on a tripod and record the whole speeches. So I usually record the whole thing. The wedding, ceremony as well is the same. I'll record the whole ceremony from start to finish, and then I can just cut out bits and pieces. Again, I'll mic the groom, and I'll also mic into their board so that I can grab a direct feed off the microphones for that as well. I just use the on-camera audio on the camera just to sync to it later on. The thing that is most important is that you have multiple backups of this. So I have got the on-camera microphone recording. I've also got usually a microphone sitting fairly close to the bride and groom, a H1. I record a lapel on the groomsman. I'll also mic up the Celebrant, and I'll also record directly into the H6 from their box as well. So let me just check down here, see if there's any questions so far. There may not be yet. Someone's saying I want A7R3. Keith saying, well done, David. I should do a live Lightroom retouch video at this time so all of you can watch it. Greetings from Minnesota. Snow somewhere there. It's the total opposite here. No, it's direct audio. No, I'm not. Oh, well, like I said, I'm micing things up, Keith. So I'm actually using multiple microphones to actually record everything that way. I shot the same footage today, prep for Saturday's photo shoot. Okay, so that's just talking about other things. So let's go down. Oh, I just need to make that smaller. So let's start, and I'll show you how we actually brought this together. So what I do is I like to work non-linear because I find it far more interesting to actually not do it in a continuous line. And this is one of the things I suppose, if I'm saying anything to you guys, if you're starting to do this type of work, don't work linear in your actual editing. I like to sort of chop and change all over the place because I find it adds a fair bit of interest rather than just having the story from start to finish. You may want to work that way, but it's just not the way that I like to actually work. The thing that I'll do at the beginning is I'll always choose the audio. Now, I'll show you where I get the audio from because they're amazing, this company. And again, I pay for all of this. Let me just bring up a new page. I bought the subscription to this site the other day. Now, it's not that cheap. I can't remember what it was. It was about $250 Australian, I think. It's Epidemic Sound. Like I said to you guys, I'm not sponsored by anyone, so anything that I show you is actually software that I'll actually use. So this is the audio site that I actually use, is Epidemic Sound. Now, the great part of this is I've found that other sites that I actually use, the second that I put them onto YouTube, even though I've got the license to run them, I always end up getting a YouTube copyright strike put against me, and then I've got to actually go about and challenge it, things like that, which is just such a pain in the backside. Cheers, everyone. I'm not really interested. Keith just said you need a sponsor, David, really. I don't really want to sponsor Keith because I really want to be open and honest with all of you guys. I'm a little bit like the Angry Photographer that way. I do prefer to be totally honest about everything that I use, and I don't want to be tied to one company. And I do think sometimes if you're a sponsor of a company, you can't really tell the truth about it because your sponsor may not want you to do that. So the only way I'd ever be a sponsor for a company is if I could tell the truth, Keith, about a product that company released, and if it wasn't good, I would tell you that it didn't meet my needs. So that's one aspect of it. So I'm quite happy just doing what I'm doing, and that's one thing where I admire the Angry Photographer, because he does not go by sponsors and stuff like that. But it may happen one day. But you know, the only way I do it is if they let me review gear exactly as it said. That can be an issue if you're sponsored by some companies. So this is the company that I use. It's Epidemic Sound. Now you actually see at the top here, it actually says YouTube subscription. So it actually then, I've never had any video that I've used from this been actually challenged by YouTube. So that it actually works very, very well. It's great. And you can search, there's stacks, thousands of different songs and stuff that you can use. So the song that I used for that was on this. But like I said, this is a paid subscription, but it does save you the fact of having been challenged the second you put something online. So I am using Epidemic Sound as my provider for the music that I'm doing. Now, so what I'll do is, the first thing that I'll actually do is I'll find the music first that I actually want to use. Now, the great thing about Epidemic Sound too is that they let you download a song, but they'll also let you download the strands of that song, which I use all the time now, because this beginning part of the video is the same song, but what it does, it lets you just bring in the instruments. So I can actually play the music at the start with just the instruments, and then later on I've added where the joint is, the singing then actually starts. And you'll see that if you watch the video down below. But that's great because you can use the same song and you can make it last longer because you can just bring in an instrument version of it. It gives you actually the bass, the guitars, the drums, and the voice all on separate tracks. So you can bring all them in and basically choose it exactly as you want to do. And I don't know any other site that lets you do that. So it's fantastic for that. I'll stick that in the link down below just in case if you do want to purchase that. Like I said, I can't remember what it is. I purchased it a few months ago. It was about $250. It wasn't cheap, but it's certainly worth it. So that's how I'll work. So at the beginning here, I've just put in music without any audio, and then I've actually stuck in from here the actual soundtrack with the singing in it. Now usually what I'll do is I'll actually do the footage to beats, and that's what you're seeing by these little markings that you can see on the audio tracks down below. And I'll just highlight the track and I'll listen to the track and I'll press M as the video actually goes across, and it will give you a spot that you can then put a marker in, and that's where you can do your transition. So it sort of follows that vibe of the music, which is, I think, really important. But how I built this was I just like to basically show an intro, which at this stage was, if I play it, you can see here that I'm just showing, well, let me see if I can make this a bit bigger. No, I can't. You can see here that I'm just showing a little bit of the start of the ceremony, and then I've cut to drone footage, which is giving me a little bit of feedback. Let me see if I can just get some sound up. Vibe of the music, which is, I think, really important. But how I built this was thing here. Oh, here we go. I know on it. So you can see here that I start off with just some footage, which is the bride and groom being married, and it just has an intro from the actual. A bit wider. There we go. That'll do. So what I do is I started off by having that intro, which is the bride and groom, the celebrant sort of talking about the bride and groom. It then cuts to this little bit of B footage, which I said I shoot, which is the welcome to your wedding, which I just shot handheld. Most of this was all shot handheld, by the way. Then it actually goes back a fraction to the wedding, and then it'll actually bring to some drone footage. So again, you can see here that the audio is still going from the speech of the celebrant, and I like to do that a lot, where the audio will be underneath. And then I'll cut to this bit also, which is the drone footage of shooting that name of the place it was at, and then coming over and just revealing the wedding location above this bridge, which then cuts to the groom having a... Well, basically what I did is I gave him 3 or 4 questions. So I asked him the question. He would then answer that question. And then I'd just basically grab a few seconds of it and then cut to footage of the bride actually getting ready. So you can see then it switches to that as he's still talking. And I think that's a great thing because you can hear him talking. He's not on too long, because often if the groom's on for too long or the bride's on for too long, it can be quite confronting and they don't like it. So this way I actually leave the groom talking underneath and I show footage of the bride getting ready. And then it's still going, so he's still talking through this section here. This is all of their getting ready section. It then will cut to the music. So the music will actually cut at this stage, and you can see that here. So again, I've just used the GH5. I used it on the monopod here. And again, I've asked the bride to just sort of play around with the dress here to sort of make it... you know, nice to sort of look at. And again, I always shoot details. Remember, they pay so much for these wedding details that it's really important to shoot all of these details. This was an area where that monopod that I showed you the other day is so great, because I just stuck it on that monopod pointing down, the GH5. It had the 24-70 lens on it, and all I did was rotate. So even though it's not a tripod, you can still use it like a tripod. That's where that monopod is so good. It's the only one I've found that will hold a camera weight on it without falling over. And then I just basically panned across like that. This is getting ready. Now, because it was at this location out in the forest or bush here in Australia, they were very limited in room. So I had to basically get them outside the veranda. There was no space at all in the hut that they were staying in, so I basically said, well, let's get ready outside, and we just did a little bit of shooting actually here outside. Again, you've just got to make sure you get all these details of them doing the dress up, things like that. Perfume. This is using drones, so I flew out, asked them to kiss. Again, they were having kiss here, and I love it when they walk away from the camera. So I asked them to have a kiss and then basically walk away from the camera. Again, this is having a kiss, and they're all putting up, yelling, carrying on like that. Again, it's bending over and having a kiss as well. So these are the formal parts. That's just a cut to different areas in that location, and then it's gone to the bride actually talking now. So now that the bride's talking, she mentioned that she loves Echuca so much, and I then went to footage showing Echuca as the destination. So it's sort of cutting back to showing that working with the bride and groom's favourite location. Now it then switches back to the ceremony again. So this is a part of the ceremony where they're just about to have a kiss. So they're just basically about to be pronounced man and wife and having a kiss. And I've just got the camera basically off to, it's just off the side out here on a tripod. And it had the GH5. I recorded the whole lot in 4K here, and basically just left it running the whole time. Now I was standing a little bit back down here with my A9, and I also had a gimbal with the A7R2 on it, which I used as well. And you'll see me using some of the A6500, I mean, in a minute when the bride walks down the aisle and things like that separately. So let's continue on. So again, they're just pronounced man and wife here. They kiss. Now that's where I could cut. Because I was shooting 4K through here, I could then cut in straight away like, oh, I've got to go back a fraction. So it's the same file. And then basically what I do is I cut straight in using the 4K file. So it gives me that crop. And that's why I'm saying the great ability of using 4K to give you that crop in. It then shoots to a bit about the reception. So this is the bride's father talking. It only cuts to him for a second, and then it basically cuts to, because he's talking about the groomsman, the groom here, I then can cut to the parts of the groom getting ready shot. So you can see how it's not linear. I've moved all over the place here, but when you watch the video in full, you'll understand what I mean by it's nice to sort of not see it linear. You're shooting it in different basically time zones. Again, as he's talking about the groom, I've switched to that section as well. So even though it's got the audio of the father underneath, I'm now showing groom prep. So that sort of takes it all through that. Now you're not seeing the whole thing because this is cut down due to the screen. It's actually wider than that. So don't worry about the croppings that you're actually looking at. I then start to show the groomsmen coming to the wedding reception, the bride's arriving at the location. Now this is on the A6500 on the gimbal that I'm using. So I'm now just using that, and I've got one camera in one hand, the A9, taking photos, and I've got the gimbal in the other hand, just capturing the video. That's why it's so important to me to have a really light gimbal. That's why I use that Fossicam, because it's really, I think it's Fossicam, it's really light, and I can use the A6500 on that at the same time as I can hold a camera at the same time. So you can see here that she's just getting a quick kiss, and now I'm using it on the A6500 on the gimbal as they're walking down the aisle. So this is where it's great to have that gimbal with it. Again, this is using the gimbal as well here. And this is on a tripod as they enter the reception a little bit later on. Then it switches to the bridesmaid talking about the girls in the wedding, and I can switch to more formal type looks. Once you see this with music, you'll see that it sort of all fits in. It then goes back to the groom, his best man talking, and again, as the best man's talking, I switch to more formal shots. The problem is if you keep showing too much of the speeches, the video would get very boring, and that's what I'm trying to eliminate by getting rid of that aspect. Let me just come back to some questions because some people have been asking them. Let me just quit up to here. Let me come back and just have a look. Artlist is great. So is that a music sharing site, Chris, is it? Are you using LUT? Sometimes I do, Keith. I didn't on this case. This was all done through Color Finale. I've actually used that to just do my own editing. So that's what I'm using in this situation. So I'm not using LUTs. Sometimes I do use LUTs, but I didn't in this case. You should come down to Brighton, Dave. It's only 35.6. That's a beach location near me. Tony said, how many shooters did you use and which camera did you operate? So I had only, because this was traveling, Tony, I only had myself on this and my wife helped me. So Kerry was second shooting for me, but Kerry doesn't do the video. Kerry just does the stills photography. So Kerry was using my A7R II with the 70-200 on it. She would shoot from different locations, the opposite to me, in other words. So when the bride and groom were walking down that aisle, I'll just go back to where that, I'll show you back here. Where was it? There. Let me just scroll back to here. So when I was shooting, I was obviously following the bride and groom. So I was somewhere around here with my camera. I had one camera, which was the A9, and I also had the A6500 on a little gimbal as well on that side, and I'd be holding them both down. Now Kerry was, I can't remember which side she stood. She stood she was either behind here or either behind here. That may have been her behind there. She will shoot the bride coming down the actual walkway here. She'll also turn around and get the groom's response and the father's response when they hand them over as well. Like I said, I had the GH5, was sitting on a tripod over here. That runs the whole time, so I don't have to worry about that. So that's my safe camera, which is running the whole time. So I'm taking the A9 shots as she's walking down in one hand. I've got the 35 1.4 on, which gives me a nice wide look. Like I said, Kerry is in another section using the 70-200. It's the f4, and she will grab the bride and groom coming down the aisle, and also she'll swing around also and get the groom's responses as well. So that's how this works. And Kerry will roam basically all over the place. You know, she will even walk behind, she'll walk sort of behind and shoot from different locations of the family, sort of shooting through here. She'll shoot the bride and groom standing through here, whereas I will basically work all from the front from this section. So that's how we tend to work like that. Like I said, because this was a few hours away from home and we were having accommodation, I can't ask the bride and groom to pay for more accommodation, so they just pay for the accommodation for Kerry and myself. We don't take other shooters in that situation. Sometimes if I'm shooting video, I will hire another person that can come and actually help lug the gear around, things like that. But in this situation, it was only Kerry and myself working. So let me just go back to the questions again. Tony Bounce said, I mean, which camera were you? Well, I was using the A9 and the A6500, Tony. So that's what I was actually using. Nice storyboard. You should be in Hollywood. Keith said, so David does have a secret weapon in his photography, his wife. My wife is amazing, Keith. Kerry is incredible. She doesn't realise how valuable she is to me and my business, because the brides actually adore her. Because she's always, as a male, it's hard sometimes to really touch and things like that, the females, whereas if, you know, there's something wrong with the dress, I will do it sometimes, but Kerry's the main one that will be fluffing the dress, doing things like that, but also she's an incredible photographer, so she, you know, she's great in that aspect as well. Kerry always shoots weddings with me. Carl's saying hi, and Ben's here as well. Hey, Ben. So let's go back to the timeline of this. I'll just drag this out the way. So we'll keep going. So you can see then that they're basically signing the register. I asked them to have a kiss. They're walking in to do the into the reception. That was a little overexposed, but I had to. The problem was I was inside here. When they're walking in, I was actually inside this tent. To get them to be bright enough, I had to overexpose a little bit, but it still works. You can see as they walk in, I wouldn't have had anything if they weren't exposed that way, so I did have to expose a little bit. And during daylight, I just didn't have enough lights. I did use lights later on, but during daylight here, I didn't use lights. Like I said, it then went to the Matron of Honour speaking, and again she's talking about how much she loves the bride, so I'll go back to more formals, things like that working here. And again, if we keep going on, then it goes to the best man. Sometimes I don't use so many speeches. Sometimes I'll only use the father of the bride. It just depends on what I'm feeling and what I get from the actual shooting. I actually asked the bride, to be honest, for a different location to do these, and I was a little bit disappointed that the bride didn't want to move from this location because I don't like this background at all. I asked her to move in front of the people, and I could have had this beautiful bokeh, which you'll see later on, was so much prettier, but unfortunately the bride didn't want to do it. And you have to remember, it's their day, so you have to do what they did. But I was just a little bit disappointed that they didn't want to move away from that area. Unfortunately, they can't see what we can see. They don't see the aspect of it. You know, I wanted to shoot them to show you. I wanted to shoot them with this background in the background here. I wanted to sort of stand them in front of here and have the people behind with all of these lights and everything behind, which would have looked gorgeous. And I did ask her that, and I did say to that, you know, I'd really prefer you to be standing outside that section, but she was insisting that she wanted to go in that location. So you have to work with what you've got. But that was an issue. I would have liked them to move, but you know, we've got to work with these things. Again, this was really funny because a local policeman stopped and we asked if they could get in the car. So I did shoot that with them inside the car, which was a little bit of humour that I thought was quite funny. They really liked it too. And this was just a section in front of this old building. Like I said, it's all cut off. You can't tell cropping by this video you're looking at. Again, they wanted to show the car that was hired. This was just a little bit of this B-cam footage that I used, and just brought this in a little bit later on. Again, I was shooting at night time, just trying to get the lights and the feel of the whole place. This was dancing. This was done with the A6500 on that gimbal. So I shot that and just basically rotated around them. Now I had two separate cameras working here. This one is switched to the camera which was on the tripod. This was the dancing. Now I'll show you the reception because I'll show you how the two of them work. If I can find the gimbal. Where is it? I think it's up here actually. So this was me walking around with the actual... Now you can see Kerry working in the background here. That's Kerry working around in the background. Now I also had the two cameras as well. So I've got the gimbal in my hand and I'm taking photos. So Kerry will always be opposite to me. You can see that I've used ice lights. So I've lit the two of them up with ice lights. There was one ice light there and there was another ice light that was actually over this point here on stands. And that is giving them that little bit of fill that you can see there. So I actually have given them a little bit of fill. Otherwise they would have been lost. So Kerry hasn't even used flashes here because they are lit by these ice lights that are actually showing through here, and you can see the rim that's coming through. So I love to shoot that way with continuous light in receptions. It's really good to have that continuous lighting, and I very rarely use on-camera flash anymore for dancers. It's mostly done by these ice lights, or the Neo Roto lights that I'll use and just light them up, and I've got the two of them that I tend to use. So Kerry will keep walking around. If you actually look at what's happening here, she will keep walking. Oh, now let me just come back a little bit because you'll see where I've got my GH5. You can see there. So the GH5 is actually sitting over here. So I've got the GH5 on the tripod, basically shooting them continuously from that location. So that's the safe shot. So again, I've always got to make sure that I've got a safe shot that's actually running all the time. And then you'll see Kerry's opposite me again. I'm shooting in this direction. So we're not in each other's way because Kerry will be trying to get a different shot from the other angle. And I've also got that gimbal that you're looking at that is letting me rotate through this section. And you can see as I keep going around, you'll see how I'm just moving around the location. You'll probably see the other ice light when we move around. There it is there. So there's the second ice light sitting right there. And they're not basically large, so you don't really notice them as being, you know, in the way and stuff like that. So it's really good because they're out of the way. But they definitely give me enough fill to be able to, you know, let me get the image without using flash light, because I really have gone off using flashes in receptions. I like to get the ambient light that's actually there. And like I said, I've only used a fraction of this when I've actually gone around. So that's that angle. But if you look at the other angle, you can see here that this is the safe one from the actual GH5. Oh no, that's still me moving around. I think it's here actually. No, it's not that one. I'm just trying to find the GH5 footage. Oh, it's here. So this is the GH5 footage. So you can see that this is just my safe shot. Oh, you can see me moving around there. So if you look at that, you'll actually see me walking around. So you can see how I've got that on the gimbal at this stage. So I'm just sort of following them around. Like I said, Kerry's shooting from that different angle. And we'll just sort of rotate opposite each other. This is where communication's really good, because you can sort of see how we both basically stay out of each other's way. Like I said, Kerry was in the bottom right-hand corner here. So I've got a safe footage from the GH5, and I've also got the footage as well from my A6500 that I'm using on that gimbal. I love using the gimbal because it adds that beautiful movement that you can see here that I think is really pretty when you're actually doing, you know, moving around. It's much nicer than having just that safe footage. See, I've switched to the safe footage here, which is just the GH5. Again, don't worry about cropping here because it's just this on-screen part you're seeing. Just a little bit of the dancing. And then I've basically just shot some stuff at night time. And then this is obviously the drone that I've shot here. Coming over the car that they used. I asked them to just do a little bit of dancing, that, you know, they were dancing there in the background. And again, this is how I finished. I asked them to be both off camera and to walk in towards the camera and have a kiss passionately, basically, in that spot, which is a nice way to finish. And then it just goes to an image which I shot, which is a still image. That's sometimes where I do incorporate the still with the video. Sometimes I'll put more still images in there, because being Fusion, that's fine. You can also put the still image in as well. So let's open up to a few questions. If you haven't got many, well, we'll call it a day and you can leave them down below. But I'm going to open it up to some questions. Let me just make this a bit smaller. So I hope you like seeing that, guys, because it's not many people will offer to show you stuff like that, behind the scenes stuff. You know, you can sort of see exactly what's going on. Like I said, I like to give you guys everything, so I hope you appreciate sort of seeing what's on there. Do you ever have crazy people crashing weddings like your live? No, I don't. That was funny the other day. Yeah, no, I don't. I never have that, Greg. I mean, I always take more footage than I need, so if I did, I'd just delete it if that did happen. Delta Dave, did you have any discussions with a wedding couple about freelance videographers jumping in your shoot during the ceremony? Yes, I always discuss that now with my wedding clients. I'll actually talk to them about it beforehand. I usually recommend to have unplugged weddings now. I just had a meeting. I will actually record a wedding meeting for you guys one day where I actually go through it, and I'll put that online so you can see how I actually run these online wedding meetings. So I will do that with you guys soon. I just have to find a couple that's willing to be online, but I will do that for you. But yes, I discussed that with them. I also have it in my contract that I'm the only photographer that's allowed to shoot, a professional photographer that's allowed to shoot. I do also discuss with them, and I show them images from basically where it's happened before, where something has been ruined by a other videographer or photographer, and that their images will suffer. And usually that's enough that it won't happen on the day. And if someone is starting to be annoying, I'll usually talk to the bride and groom about it. So I don't really have that issue much anymore. There was a wedding I just did recently where it became an issue. He jumped out in front of me during the ceremony. I'm going to open it so I'll show you, but I wasn't shooting the video on this day, but it still wrecked my shots. So I'll show you what happened. I've mentioned it before, but I'll show you here as well, just because this question has just been asked. So let me go back to here. So this actually happened because I wasn't shooting video. When we did this wedding, like I said, the bride doesn't know about this yet. I'll be discussing this with her when she comes for her basically viewing. Let me just scroll through. Where are we? I'll find it for you and then bring it up and show you what happened, because you're going to freak out when you see it. Where are we? Nearly found it, guys. Just so many photos in here that it's hard to find. Nearly there. I should mark it as a favourite because I'm going to show what actually happened here. Alright, so let me just reduce this down and I'll show you what happened. So this is Bethany's wedding. These have been unedited at this stage, so don't worry about exposure. Remember, I always underexpose a little bit when I'm actually exposing weddings, because I always like to make sure I get the detail in the wedding dress. But this wedding, this gentleman here was actually standing off the side here. Now, I was actually standing dead centre in the aisle because I wanted to make sure that I got the kiss. And next to me, I was here with the A9. Next to me right here was the videographer. Now, I'd recommended this videographer because remember, as a fusion photographer, I will only do a 3 to 5 minute highlight reel. I'm not interested in shooting a whole wedding and editing an hour, 2 hour long wedding. I think that would be the most boring thing on earth. I love, and to be honest, I adore doing these fusion videos because I really enjoy it. It's creative for me. It's something different, but it's only a highlight reel, which means the pressure really is off me and I don't have to give this long, official full edit from the wedding. So if that happens, I'll tell the bride I will do the video and that's a $1,200 add-on. But if they want any more than that, like full reception coverage, full ceremony coverage, things like that, so basically a doc edit, I'll recommend someone else to do the videography. So the video guy that I recommended, and I usually will recommend ones because I've got certain ones that I like to work with, he stood right next to me there. Now this guy, for some reason, who's holding a handy cam, was standing over in that area, outside the area. So I never worried about it. Normally, I probably, if I was shooting video, I probably would have gone over and said to him, can you please make sure, you know, that you stay out of the way and stuff. But this guy, for some unknown reason, basically walked straight in front of the bride and groom. You can see here that I'm going to do multiple shots in a second because he walked straight in front of the bride and groom as they were going to have their kiss. So I missed their kiss, which is devastating for me, but there's nothing I could do about it. There was not a thing that I could do about it. It's even worse for the video because, I mean, he's capturing the moving subjects. Now, luckily, Kerry was shooting with me and she was off the side in that location over there. So Kerry, as a second shooter, has got an image of the actual kissing. So she has got one. Like I said, that I'm going to have to now, these will be edited, but she has got it. But I haven't got an image of the whole thing where they are in the middle having a kiss. And that devastates me because I really consider myself to be an artist, and I don't ever want to be one of these just shoot, point and burn and fire away photographers. It really does matter to me when I give my bride and grooms, and it devastates me that I haven't got an image that I can give them, nicely cropped, that shows the whole front of the actual church there, the altar, with the minister and the priest in the background. This was a Catholic wedding with the priest in the background having a beautiful kiss. So that guy has ruined those shots for me. He probably is a family member, I don't know, but basically he's ruined those shots for me. And I'm devastated by that, and I'll be showing these to Bethany when she actually comes to see the actual wedding. But that's the type of thing that can happen, guys. So now my suggestion is, I've learned from this as well now, if I see that happening, if I see someone in the corner like that, I'm going to say to them right up front, do not come out to the middle. I don't understand why he did it, because she was getting a full doc edit given to her for this wedding, which is crazy. But having said that, I know she's going to adore the images that I'm giving her for this image, because if you look at the images that I'm actually giving her from this, I mean, I'm still love what I'm actually going to give her as a photographer. You know, I mean, I'm really happy with the work that I'm actually going to give her here. So I think she's going to just adore them. But it's still that aspect of the fact that I can't give her that image of the kiss that, you know, hurts me, because I really do like to give my best to them, and that was totally outside of my control. But, you know, like I said, I still think she's going to adore the images that she's actually got. So that may answer your question about that. Let me just move this out the way. Rick said, thanks, Dave. I asked for this for the longest while. Yeah, I'm glad I've done it for you, Rick. I remember you did ask about it. Aria said, I second Delta Dave's question. That is a real problem here in weddings. Most guests are respectful of your work, but there's always one or two that are not. That's why I really do like to try and get unplugged wedding guys, because it does take out that aspect of it, you know, and a lot of them now are doing unplugged for me, which is good. I like to grab some images of showing, you know, people with iPads blocking the aisle, things like that, which are really great if you can show the bride and groom those sort of images. So if you do have images where they've ruined shots, keep them and show them in the wedding interview. Do you run credits at the end of the video? No, I don't, Dave, but I should probably do that, but I don't. Sometimes I have, but I just haven't lately, but I probably should do that. But I do always tag them in the videos, so it's one way also that, you know, I am putting it in there as well. So I do always share it, and those people always share it as well. Thanks for all this and the insight you provide. No worries, Greg. Thanks for watching. Yeah, Keith said that will ruin it. Only do credits when you're using Profolio with a watermark. Handycam. I would say, move, Phil, get out the way, like that song. I know that the thing was, because it was a church wedding and it was so quiet, I was sort of a bit shocked. I tried to get the attention of the priest, the priest there, to say, can we redo it? But he wasn't looking at me at all, and they moved on. So there was just nothing I could do about it. I couldn't even repeat it. Often if you've got a celebrant, you can make sure the celebrant's looking at you and you can redo the kiss. I did that actually in this ceremony, because the kiss wasn't really long enough. So the celebrant said, are you happy with that? And I went, no. And so they kissed again, and I used that in the footage. So that was a great part about it. Ian DeBrown said, if I was one of your grips, I would have popped him on the head. Can you composite him out of the frame? No, I can't. I don't think so. It'd be way too much work, Dave. I think it just wouldn't work with so much detail that was on that altar. If I'd probably put it on a tripod, I might have been able to, but I was holding everything by hand, so, you know, it would be an incredible amount of work to try and make everything match up and not show. It's possible, because I did have images earlier on, but I don't know. So there's no more questions there, guys. Yeah, so I'll finish up by saying that the colour correction I did on this was all done through Color Finale, and it uses curves and things like that, which is a really great program, and I've showed that before, and I'll probably bring up another video where I'll show that as well, so you can sort of see that too. But I will start to show more of these things for you later on too, because you can see this aspect of it. I don't know how popular this is going to be compared to with my photography stuff for showing you guys, but again, it's not all about just getting hits for me. It's also about giving you things that you might find and you can learn from. And that's the important thing for me, so that's why I just love sharing everything that I do. I will tell you one thing though, adding this has changed my wedding photography business completely. It's certainly given me that much more work because I've had the ability to offer video at the same time of doing stills. And I do think the way things are going, video is going to become more and more important. Video now is massive on Facebook and these other profiles. So I do think if you're a photographer now, particularly if you're doing wedding and events, you are definitely in the future, if you're going to keep working, have to learn the video side of it. You'll definitely have to have it in your arsenal, otherwise you're going to be left by. So, you know, it's an important thing to think about, guys, that if you do want your business to expand, You have to try and push the boundaries. And this was something that I saw all along. I have 20,000 photographers in my area, all mums with cameras, people like that, but very few people are offering what I offer, which is the stills and the video at the same time, because it's hard work. And it is hard work, but it's something that I can offer that no one else is offering. There's very few photographers out there offering fusion. So it's one thing I can say to you guys that, you know, if you are thinking about it, learn it. It does take time, and don't rush at it. Make sure you're a competent photographer first, of course, but then try and push also into the video as well, because you'll probably never look back. So it's something that you do have to think about, and you have to think about costing. There's no way I can afford, in the prices that I'm charging, which is an average of probably $4,000, I can't afford to be also hiring a videographer as well, because that's going to take away from the money that I'm earning. I'd prefer to be having that money myself and pay someone a couple of $100s to just lug the gear around. So, you know, they're things that you can think about too, that I'll also talk about when we go back to setting up your photography business as well. So, you know, they're things that you can talk about as well. Carl said you need a long cane with a big hook. The thing is too, Carl, that happened so quickly. It was a very quick, you know, have your first kiss, and he walked out. It doesn't seem that when you're looking at it through the stills, but it was very quick. I had the A9 on fast, so I was shooting on the 20 frames per second, and it was grabbing those exposures. So, you know, it happened really quickly, and that's why I'm saying I couldn't do anything to get that person out of the way. This is where I do say to you, it's so important to have a second shooter, because if I didn't have a second shooter, I would not have had that second kiss. So that is one thing I can say to you. If you are starting in photography, make sure you do have a second shooter, because that second shooter has sometimes saved my butt, like they did in that situation. Now, it's not my fault, of course, but I'm still thankful that I can give them a photo of their first kiss, which I wouldn't have had if I didn't have an assistant there. So this is the first time I've posted something where I've used the GH5 and the A6500 together. So let me know what you think about that together. I found it was good. I misfocused a couple of times on the GH5. I have to admit the focusing is so much better on the Sony system, because I use the A6500 just basically with autofocus, and it never really misses a beat. So I did miss a couple of shots in focus on the GH5, but I handled it pretty well overall, considering that was the first time I'd used that camera in a wedding scenario. So I'm quite happy with how that video went. But watch the full video. Like I said, that's down below. Watch the full video and let me know what you think. And remember, always try and work non-linear, because I think it's a much more romantic look to the video, rather than having it as a doc edit, which is basically from the start to the end. You know, and that's Keith's just saying my second shooter is in my pants. So, you know, that's the thing that I sort of suggest, is always work with a second shooter to cover yourself. Talk to people that you think may be an issue in the beginning. I should have spoken to that video guy that was standing in the corner. I didn't worry about it so much because there was a video guy next to me, and I thought I didn't have to worry about that, but clearly I did. So next time I'll be more open in my communication. But they're things that, you know, I like to talk about. But learn Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro if you want to do it. Learn Final Cut X, I mean. Learn a program like that now. Spend the time to learn it, and I will start to show, perhaps one day I'll actually show you me building one, and you can actually see my thought process as I'm actually building one. That will be a long video, but it may be something that you'd be interested in seeing. So let me know that down below too, whether you think that'd be an interesting thing to see. Any last questions before we go, guys? Obviously Thursday's video live Sony News and Rumours will be up again on Thursday morning for you guys in the US, Friday here in Australia. So that'll be on. Apart from that, if there's no more questions, I'll see you all again for the next video in a few days. So have a great day, guys. I'm going to go back to beer o'clock. And I'll see you all again soon. So cheers for now, guys. Good day.